Hi folks, that's onandroid.com where we get on Android every day. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and test out which microSD card is the fastest in the world. Let's go find out. Let's go do this, baby. I use a lot of microSD cards, mostly because I flash a ton of custom ROMs on my Android smartphones, and I wanted to find out which microSD card is the fastest in the world. For this shootout, I'm using 3 of the best Class 10 microSD cards from Samsung, Sony, and SanDisk. The Samsung 64GB Pro rated at 90 megabytes per second, Sony HighSpeed microSD rated at 95 megabytes per second, and the SanDisk Extreme PRO rated at 95 megabytes per second. First, I did a read-write speed using a free software called CheckFlash by a Russian developer. Do you have any vodka? After doing tests on all of these microSD cards, I found some interesting results. Hell yeah, baby. For this particular test, I used my Kingston USB 3.0 microSD card reader. The SanDisk Extreme PRO performed the best with read speed of around 90 megabytes per second and write speed of 54 megabytes per second. Samsung came second with read speed of 85 megabytes per second and write speed of 45 megabytes per second. Sony came last with read speed of 65 megabytes per second and write speed of 35 megabytes per second. Now, all of these manufacturers state that their microSD cards perform better than 90 megabytes per second, but the reality tells a different story. And that's why I did this test. Also, I did some real file transfer tests because I wanted to see the real results for myself, not just rely on a speed test software. I was able to write a 2GB file to a SanDisk Extreme PRO in just 27.76 seconds, to Samsung Pro in 28.13 seconds, and Sony cards in 38.61 seconds. For reading, I copied a 2GB file from the microSD cards to my computer. Sony actually came up first at 20.86 seconds, SanDisk next at 22.8 seconds, followed by Samsung at 23.88 seconds. Now for write speeds, the real-life results confirm CheckFlash software while my reads were slightly off. But remember, these speeds are faster than any other microSD cards out there. I'm just showing the nitty-gritty. If I were you, or if you were me, I would still get one of these cards and just shop for the best prices. Now, how fast does your microSD card have to be to record a 4K video? That is the question of the century. A typical 4K video on a smartphone consists of 50,000 kilobits per second bitrate, which translates to about 6.25 megabytes per second bitrate. Remember, a small b stands for bit and big B stands for byte. There's 8 bits in a byte. This means so long as your microSD card can write at 6.25 megabytes per second or higher, you're good to go. For 4K video recording in general, I would stick with Class 10 or higher. I've done fine using lower class microSD cards in the past to record 4K videos, but sometimes I have encountered problems when I record videos longer than a minute. Sometimes your camera may stutter or prematurely ejaculate. Yeah, that sucks when you're recording your newborn daughter's birth and your video fails. Also, I found out through personal experience of using many microSD cards over the years, the higher class microSD cards in general last longer, have 0 errors. And my most important advice to you is stay away from cheaper brands like PNY. I've literally had these PNY microSD cards fail upon opening the package and using it for the first time. Trust me, you will spend more money with these cheaper cards because they'll fail. Remember my advice, do it right the first time. That way you never have to do it again. Now, if you don't transfer a lot of data, record 4K videos, or you don't even flash custom ROMs like myself, I'll then stick with lower class cards, but I still recommend you stick with at least Class 10. I do highly recommend the Samsung Evo Class 10 cards. They're slightly lower bit rate at 48 megabytes per second, but they're pretty cheap. I think about 25 bucks for 64 gigabytes, a pretty good deal. So where do you buy these cards? Stay away from Best Buy. They usually charge 20 to 30% over Amazon prices, or at least get them to do price matching. Also, watch out for seasonal sales on Amazon. They usually have these super sales like 3 or 4 times a year. You can get the Samsung Pro or the Sony cards, the Class 10 I'm talking about, for about 25 bucks each. Overall, SanDisk wins this shootout, but in my personal experience, I've had more SanDisk fail on me over the last couple of years. I actually have about 4 or 5 of them. They just failed out of one day, out of the blue. Also, with the Sony or Samsung cards, I've had 0 fail. So I highly recommend getting the Samsung or Sony microSD cards. And stay away from PNY. It's like nightmare. And thanks for watching this video. As always, if this video has helped you buy a microSD card, don't forget to hit that like, subscribe. And you can follow me on Twitter, Facebook, or Google+. And as always, I'll stay on Android.